So it kind of got really heated. So because can you believe that she actually asked me for the PIN number on my debit card? You know what I told her? You show me your PIN, and I'll show you mine.
Oh wow,
You
man!
should have seen the look on her face.
The show me your.
Yeah.
Oh,
Show me on your debit card. Oh, hey guys, this is GG, and we're live. And you know what that means? It means.
Hi, Dean. How you doing? It's good to see you again, Dean. Hi, guys. Sit down.
You know, I think Dean Martin would have made a better pope than the ones that we've had lately, and that's today's topic. Everyone is talking about it. This is the topic. First American Pope, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, elected the 267th Pope, taking the name Leo XIV. There you have it. That was pretty quick, you know. I thought they were just going to drag it on for like a week, you know, to get the ratings. But that was quick. And here to give commentary on what that means, is he the Pope or is he the anti-Trump? Why did you come up with that name, anti-Trump?
Well, you know, it's a play on words. Like, for instance, in the New Testament, you have the Antichrist. And so in the Antichrist, it's always a figure of good versus evil. And so what we have this dynamic with this new religious leader in the world, and he's definitely in a position to be an anti-American, the way America is going. Now, he's American, and I don't mean he's anti-America, the United States. I mean, he's anti what the United States is, a nation state. He's from his own commentary on social media, he's not a nationalist like Donald Trump would be. Donald Trump loves America and is an America first. And the MAGA movement is a Make America Great. And so what we're seeing here is we're asking the question. Naturally, this is just opinion based. We don't know. And anybody could come on the comment section and say that, you know what, Jesse, you guys are full of it. But I happen to believe this was a political pick to go against Donald Trump's Make America Great movement. This is an anti-nationalist pick, so that it would make it a globalist pick. But no matter how you look at it, it is a political pick, not an evangelical pick, not a religious pick. This is definitely a political pick. Just like the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. You yourself said it. These men are not known for their evangelizing. These men are not known for praising God or praising Jesus Christ, or they're not modern day Jimmy Swaggart. I mean, who's the great evangelist in the Pentecostal movement in America? Mm-hmm. I was going to say Jimmy Swaggart, but you know who I'm talking about, the great evangelist here in the United States.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Man, my mind is going blank.
Billy Graham?
Yeah. You know, nobody in the Jehovah's Witness movement is known to be like a Billy Graham. And so this gentleman doesn't have that kind of cred, but he does have social media history, and he does stand for things that are not what the MAGA movement is. And so that's why we came up with that term. Is he the anti-Trump? Is what we're asking.
Well, so, you know, he even went after President Nayib Bukele. As Trump and Bukele used the Oval to feds illicit deportation of a U.S. resident, once an undocumented Salvadorian himself, now D.C. Ox Velio asks, do you not see the suffering? Is your conscience not disturbed? How can you stay quiet? But I didn't know how. Kind of confusing. But he ripped it on Bukele for not wanting to return he didn't want to return the gang member, right?
Right.
That's just one. But what other one? And then he went after JD Vance. Hey, honey, I'm live right now as we speak. Can you believe this, Jesse? She calls me
Yeah.
during. Yeah. When she should be watching and taking notes. Go ahead.
No. I'm just Beverly's correct on the chat. I called
Mhm.
him Pentecostal. I meant Protestant.
I'll see you later. Yeah. So he goes after this right before this guy becomes the Pope. He goes after JD Vance. He has every right to. Pope Francis, and what the gospel asks of all of us on immigration. Whoa, JD Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. Okay. And there's some more. Calling refugee bans is a dark hour of U.S. history. The world is watching as we abandon our commitment to American values.
Now, Gilbert,
Mhm.
you know how strong the MAGA movement is on. Stop right there and we'll go down a little bit. But let's just stop and consider this for a second. And I told you when the circuit overseer hated my guts, Rogelio, what was his name? Ahel Raymond, that Cuban brother. And the elders told me, Jesse, you ought to see what he thinks about you. And I go, I know what he thinks about. He loves me because we're Christians, right? And he goes, well, I don't know. I go, don't worry about it. I told the elders, I think of him what he thinks of me. And everybody got real quiet. And see, this is what's happening in the Catholic Church right now. It's beautiful. What we're witnessing is beautiful because it is almost a separation of the wheat and weeds. This is the fear. This is the fear we had in 1959, 1960, during the 1960 presidential campaign. This is the fear come to life. And I called it the great cosmic karma. And I don't know if you got the ChatGPT conversation I had with it. But the reason I call this is because this is the fear that Americans had with John F. Kennedy, because he was the first Roman Catholic president of the United States. And in the Protestant background of the United States, we had a suspicion that maybe if we had a Catholic president, he would hold allegiance to the Vatican first and not be America first. And hindsight is 2020. We know that those fears were not founded in reality because John F. Kennedy went on to become one of our greatest presidents and one of our most beloved presidents and revered presidents. And he was a Roman Catholic. But the fear in 1960 was tangible. And this is the reason why. Now we're seeing it in reverse. We have an American Pope who really doesn't hold America first. He believes in open borders, but he really believes in it. And so he might have an allegiance to the Vatican. It's reverse of John F. Kennedy.
Yeah. So let me just for proof of that. He posted this before he became Pope. The United States has a long history of welcoming refugees who are fleeing for their lives, and Catholic organizations have helped to resettle many families, men, women, and children from around the globe. But he omits the part that they've lost 300,000 children. Many of our priests, religious, and lay people have accompanied newcomers precisely to assist them in this process. Because of our history of aiding in refugee and migrant settlement for decades, we know the very lengthy and thorough vetting process they must face before they are admitted to our country. We have seen initial fear turn into a generous willingness of local communities, Chicago, to accept and integrate refugees. Here in Chicago, generations of migrants have found a new home. We are better for it. So if you notice, this guy's talking in his very pretty words, but he omits the part that where Alex Jones shows Catholic Charities, right? Having children and they're passing them out like items that you would just get from a Walmart shelf, and then the 300,000 missing children, no mention of that. And then he's talking about Chicago. Has he been to the Chicago City Council meetings? You see, this guy talks just like the governing body. Everything is pretty melodious, pretty words, right? Beautiful words. But it has no connection with the people on the street. The people in Chicago are like, what the hell is this guy talking about? He lives in a different universe. So does he actually believe these words?
Yes.
Go ahead. Mhm.
Yes. Now these leaders, especially at this high level, they don't live. They're not like Sister Teresa. They don't live on the streets and see the people. They really lived in their ivory towers. And his family, he doesn't have to worry about his children doing fentanyl. He doesn't have to worry about his wife coming out of work and them a band of illegals affecting them. He doesn't have to worry about that. He lives a sheltered life. And so he lives in the practical theory that they are going to help refugees. And in his mind, he thinks the people coming over the border are like Joseph and Mary. In his mind, he really thinks that Joseph and Mary are coming over. And they're going to have a baby named Jesus. And this is what Jesus calls for. He really believes that. He is that naive. You know those people that trend their Aragua? They didn't really take over those. That it doesn't register in his brain. He doesn't have the mental or genetic capability to think that. And he doesn't even bring it up in his conversation.
Yeah, he doesn't bring it up.
He doesn't bring that up. That's out of sight, out of mind. And you know what? Jehovah's Witnesses used to call it out. Do you remember in 1982, the International Year of Peace, and the Jehovah's Witness said, hey,
86.
we listened to 86. We listened to Pope John Paul's speech. He didn't bring up Jesus one time. Remember when Watchtower used to dissect political speech?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you dissect this guy's political speech, he never talks about the victim of illegal aliens coming into a country. He just talks about the resettlement. Because maybe, I don't know if this is true, I don't know, but the cynicism in me is starting to say, could it be because there's a lot of money in moving refugees around? There's a lot of money. It's a big business.
Correct. So let's go on to what ChatGPT. You want to go ahead and read that? Or? The new Pope, it's 1 trillion% a political move.
It says, the recent election of Pope Leo XIV, born Robert Francis Prevost, as the American pontiff, has indeed sparked discussions about the political dimensions of this decision. This is ChatGPT. I asked it the question, is it a political move? I said it's a political move. It's not even a question. At 69, Pope Leo XIV's selection reflects a blend of continuity and change within the Roman Catholic Church. Political considerations in the election. Geopolitical implications. Historically, the Vatican has been cautious about appointing a pope from a global superpower like the United States. Due to the concerns about perceptions of political influence, Pope Leo XIV's election marks a departure from this tradition, suggesting a strategic move to address global dynamics. His background includes significant missionary work in Peru and roles within the Vatican overseeing episcopal appointments, indicating a broad international perspective. 2. Internal church dynamics. The church has been navigating tensions between conservative and progressive factions. Yes, we've seen that. Pope Leo XIV is viewed as a unifying figure. Aligning with Pope Francis's emphasis on synodality, global outreach, and social justice, while also holding more conservative views on issues like the ordination of women and LGBTQ plus matters. This is a lie. ChatGPT, come on, man. They're working behind the scenes hard to get that in, just like the Watchtower. Me and you talked about that in other episodes. This balance suggests an attempt to bridge internal divides. You want to break that down a little bit? So one of the things about ChatGPT, it's information in, information out. So they buy hook, line, and sinker that they understand that in the Catholic Church, there's a lot of divides. And the same thing we always say with the Jehovah's Witnesses too. There's a lot of divides. They say they're not political, yet everything they do is political. And they get their main source of news from the United Nations after they talked bad about the United Nations all their life. Here they're saying that this is a moderate pope,
Hmm.
and because he's against the ordination of women and hold back on the LGBTQ. Well, what do you think social justice is? So right there's a contradiction in ChatGPT. LGBTQ plus is social justice warriors.
Mhm. Yes.
Mhm.
In the first paragraph, when it talks about Pope Leo, and I may be wrong on this because I don't know him personally, it says his background includes significant missionary work in Peru. Let's just stop there. That sounds pretty. So when I think of missionary work, I'm thinking feeding the poor, educating the poor, hands-on work with the people. This guy doesn't have it. Listen, this is the difference between him and Donald Trump. Donald Trump built skyscrapers, and in the building of skyscrapers, he had to make sure the steel came from the right steel factory that had the right tensile strengths that the engineers were calling for. He didn't just go to Home Depot or to China and buy the cheapest steel to build his skyscrapers. You know, he all of his televisions he bought because they had to sync up. And how did he do it? He had to go to the factory in South Korea. And he didn't buy one TV. He didn't buy 10 TVs. He didn't buy 100 TVs. And then he had to pay his taxes on these things, on trade. So here you have a president that builds golf courses in Scotland and other parts of the world. And so here this guy has a little bit of experience, Donald Trump, and he's president. That's why we voted for him, because he has a little bit of experience, right? You mean to tell me that this guy, or the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, like it says here, his background includes significant missionary work in Peru? Do you really think I'm stupid and I'm going to believe that he was a missionary, like a real missionary? I mean, come on. This is the problem I have. Do you understand where I'm trying to go with this? Where when you have somebody who really does work, physical work, and he really does, projects, and then becomes president, you bash him, but then you got this guy. What? He's a missionary? No. Show me the receipts, is what I'm saying.
Yes, and that could be. There
I may
could
be
be an
wrong.
autobiography about him. There could have been
I may be wrong. Mhm.
Yeah, you could be wrong, and he could have. He could
Mhm.
be working in the missionary in Peru. We just don't see it, and we're not privy to it. We just have to take their face value, and
Mhm.
then it gives a vague wording of what he did in the Vatican.
Mhm.
It says overseeing episcopal appointments. So he was a paper pusher,
Mhm.
but then again, we don't know because
Well, we kind of
it's so
do,
vague.
because like, for example, the governing body of our religion, Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, they're not like Brother Barr, who the governing body member, who was district overseer west of the Mississippi. West of the Mississippi was his territory. So you actually could say that the people that were in the governing body back in the 70s and 80s actually had done real significant labor and missionary work, and they were now heads of a religion. I don't think we have that here.
Yeah.
That's just my
What's the
opinion.
next page?
So
I would have to say that, Gilbert. I understand what you're saying, but I would have to say we don't know
we don't know.
because we weren't given a resume. Yeah,
Correct.
and you know what? We don't have to. They don't owe us anything.
No.
Yeah.
But I when I read that, that's what's going through my head when I'm reading it. So you go and you ask ChatGPT. The Catholic Church has reached cosmic karma. The Catholic JFK would not be is what the new American Pope will be.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Okay. It says that's a striking and poetic way to put it. The cosmic karma. There's real symbol weight in what you're saying. JFK and the Catholic Church. John F. Kennedy's presidency in 1960 was a watershed moment for American Catholics. He had to publicly distance himself from the Vatican to reassure the American public that he would not be a puppet of the Pope. His famous statement to the Greater Houston Ministerial Association emphasized separation of church and state, asserting that his policies would not be dictated by Rome. Now, in 2025, we have the first American Pope, Pope Leo XIV. This turn of events feels like a reversal of the history's tension. The Vatican, once seen as a foreign and suspect in American life, is now symbolically led by an American. It is as if the church is acknowledging that the future no longer lies with just old European power centers, but in the global South and the Americas, with the US now fully inside the tent. And what's the next page say? Okay, the irony. There's the irony. It says, the irony. JFK had to say, I am not the Catholic Church. Pope Leo XIV, an American, may have to say, I am not America. That contrast encapsulates the strange full circle moment you called cosmic karma. The institution JFK feared being too closely tied to now finds itself led by the kind of American Catholic whose very existence would have raised alarm bells in his era. Would you like to explore Pope Leo's background or views with the American political or religious culture?
No.
Because
you know, they could put anything down on the resume and they'll just buy it. Yeah. You know, missionary my ass.
Now, one of the things everybody knows how this game is played. They're saying, oh, the new Pope is an American. Yes, but he's a liberal of biblical proportions. And he's not an America first American. He's definitely, you could see by his social media postings that he's an open borders liberal. Now, I'm not saying he's not a loving person, a loving Christian. I'm not. It's just that he believes that love is through open borders. And his love for people who are coming across the open borders blinds him to real justice, not social justice, real justice. He will let anybody in. If you had a person from Mars with super nuclear AIDS and tuberculosis, he will let him in. He'll let anybody in, anytime, anywhere. So that's just his genetic makeup. And so there's a real divide. It's a real divide. Yeah. So that's why we've said, you know, did the Vatican do this on purpose? So do you see why I called it the AntiTrump? They put an American to show the world, hey, look, this is America. It's an anti-Trump.
Correct. So you're saying that they didn't put him because he was the very best. He had the best resume. He had the most qualifications, and he was known throughout all of the circles for his biblical knowledge and application of biblical principles, and he was a great teacher.
No, the white liberal is a DEI hire.
He was a DEI. So you're saying the 2025 Pope is a DEI hire?
Yes.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
They said, you know how they used to say, hey, let's give that minority a chance? They said, hey, let's get an American a chance.
Wow.
And that's why we call it the cosmic karma, a turning, an irony. It's perfect. It's like if you're playing chess and Donald Trump is bringing Make America First, and the Vatican goes and puts a checkmate or a check. Not a checkmate, but a check. So this is like a check and balance in the globalist scheme of things.
Now he was attacking, this Pope was attacking Trump and Vance and others. But did you notice how Donald Trump reacted to his appointment?
Yeah, he had to act. Donald Trump is very congratulatory, and he's very he has to get along with everybody. like the way he did with Mark Carney, the way he did with Great Britain, the way he did with everybody. And he does it with Xi Jinping because it's a high stake game and you hope for the best. Well, Donald Trump wants to have a good relationships with the Vatican. And, but the Vatican really doesn't care. This is a poke in his eye. This is a big, oh yeah, America first, we'll show you.
The other thing I noticed is that these popes and these religious figures, they don't mind their own business. They don't stay in their lane. I remember there was an interview with Tom Homan. They're asking him questions, and he got very upset because I'm staying in my lane. I'm not going to go there. If you want that, ask somebody else. I'm staying in my lane. And so these religious leaders, they don't know how to stay in their lane. They're like a guy who's trying to use all 4 lanes of the freeway. He wants to be on all of them, and instead of just helping people and teaching them the principles that Jesus taught, the simple teachings and how to benefit. Like, I'll give you an example. The president of Mexico, right? Remember Benito Juarez? Amongst nation and amongst men, the respect for individual rights is peace. So it's real simple. Why do we have conflicts? Because people are not respecting individual rights. So you kept it very simple, very simple, very simple. But these people don't keep it simple. They're busybodies of a cosmic order that you're talking about, and that's sad. So it wouldn't be nice to have a pope who didn't get involved in the affairs and let other people just make, let Donald Trump do what the people elected him to do, and just and also what Jesus says about the straw. Like, everyone has been saying it. I mean, we heard it 1,000 times. They criticize Donald Trump for putting up a border wall, but they don't look at the wall that the Vatican has. Didn't Jesus talk about that? Jesus says, hey, you look at the straw in Donald Trump's eyes, but you don't see the rafter in yours.
Yeah.
This is what these religious leaders have become. They're not, they'll mention Jesus. I was waiting for him I was happy he mentioned Jesus Christ at the beginning of his speech, but it was just for show, man. That was just me.
Yeah, and you know what? But he doesn't never, and this is something that Tom Homan talks about and a lot of Republicans talk about, is that these people who advocate for open borders and globalism, they never talk about the victims.
Yeah.
It's not until somebody rapes somebody in your family. It's not until somebody breaks into your house. It's not until somebody takes over your apartment that you worry about this. So the Pope doesn't care if anybody is raped or murdered by illegal aliens. He sees these people as pure Christian pilgrims, and he treats them as such. And now somebody say, well, Jesse, that's a bold statement and a lie. How do you know how he sees them? Well, the actions, my dear, his actions. He doesn't talk. He talks about vetting, but you and I just witnessed with our own eyes that everybody who was coming over that border was being shipped all over the country. There was no vetting. There was no vetting. So it's like you said, those are all words. Remember, like Barack Obama said, just words, just words. Those are just words. They're empty words. And you would expect something more from a man of God. Jesus is the word. So words mean things. But to these globalist leaders, they're just words. And there's the irony of the irony. They use words to victimize entire nations. Now, you have to ask yourself, how does this help? For example, open borders helps the Democrat Party. It brings in new voters, younger voters, because upwardly mobile people tend to vote maybe conservative. But you have a new uneducated, they don't understand the nation state. They usually tend to vote communist, socialist, Democrat, leftist, because they're getting a lot of things. Like Rush Limbaugh used to say, it's hard to vote against Santa Claus. Yeah, when the Democrats are giving you everything, it's hard not to be a Democrat. Yeah, it's hard to vote against Santa Claus. But what does the Catholic Church get out of this? Well, it seems to me that the Pope he thinks it's some kind of benevolent. It's some kind of duty, and they talk about it, that it is their Catholic duty, it is their Christian duty to help the migrants.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep saying that over and over. And even ChatGPT, when I was talking to it, they said that the argument, and I even cussed at it, and I said, what the F are they doing? And they go, well, they don't see it the way you see it.
Mm-hmm.
They really see it as their God-given duty to help the migrants.
Mm-hmm.
And so the logical question is, how many? What if 100 million people come over? To what point? Until you suicide your nation? You know, at what point do you say enough is enough? I guess those questions don't register in this Pope's mind. You know, he's doing his God-given obligation to have open borders and to help facilitate the immigration of the third world into the United States.
Mm-hmm. So I'll give you my take. When I saw that, and I can't help but getting out of my mind there's a spirit of lawlessness going on right now, and so I just wanted to show you. It's that second of Thessalonians. It's pretty interesting. So this will explain your religious leaders that are advocating for lawlessness on the border, lawlessness in our laws, and so I went back to look at it, and it says, "For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains will do so until he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is according to the work of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved." But here it is. "And for this reason, God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie." And there's a lot of people, Jesse, in the religious circles, in the political circles, in the business circles, that they actually believe the lie. They actually, like you said, they actually believe it. And you're like scratching your head. You're like, hold on a minute. This is illegal. There's 300,000 children missing. And the same children are sent back and recycled over and over again. And they don't want to hear it. And so it's kind of like 11. And for this reason, God will send them strong delusion. And so this is not just with the Pope that he thinks that he can just criticize the American people for wanting to have borders, language, and culture. This is affecting everything. I've been following this, Jesse, also in let me see if I have it here. I'm going to jump, but it has to do with it's all circles, business, and this is happening right now in Texas. Check this out.
Equal ground zero because they've infiltrated our homes. Central appraisal districts ignore by intent every single real estate appraisal law, which again is uniform standards appraisal practices. Remember that. Number 3, and this is a good one. No U.S. homeowner signed and agreed to pay ground rent. We don't.
This is probably the best channel out there right now, Real Estate Mindset. No U.S. homeowner signed and agreed to pay ground rent. These people are talking to judges as in Texas, and they're saying, "Listen, there's RICO statute. They're breaking the law in all of these cities in Texas and everything." These people are borrowing money in the millions and billions, and they're leaving the taxpayer on the hook. And the judges are closing their ears. City council closing their ears. These guys are taking it and escalating court. And then they're over here talking about we are not required to pay rent because we live in a ground. You don't have a right to charge us rent to live because we have a home. And so the point I'm trying to make is everywhere you go in every industry, whether it's in this case, it's real estate, it's also in politics, whether it's in business or in religion, you have a group of people that have thrown the law out the window. The law out the window. They're lawless people. And sometimes, we find ourselves fighting with these people, because we're fighting for common sense, the truth. We're fighting not to get ripped off. But it falls on deaf ears. It seems that the people in charge of our religions, our institutions, are lawless people. And then comes a man like Donald Trump, who is saying, I want to be a law and order president. I want to obey the law. I want to work within the law. I don't want to I don't want to charge you ground rent. Do you see that, Jesse? Ground rent. And these judges are looking at these people like they're stupid. Like, what are you talking about? Why are you complaining? So we have a sense of, this thing about the Pope, of all of the people they could have picked, a guy that doesn't understand the difference between law and unlawful. There's a sense of lawlessness going on right now.
Yeah, but you have to, we don't know if, we hope for the best. We hope the best. We hope that he doesn't come with a conservative pedigree. He doesn't come, like, for instance, when we were reading his resume, and it talked about his missionary work, but the word Jesus didn't even come up. The word poor didn't come up. The word orphans didn't come up. Like if Sister Teresa was there, you would see feeding the poor. So you would have a track record. You have these vague explanations, but he doesn't come with a conservative pedigree. He comes with a globalist pedigree through his social media posts. And you're right when you read that scripture about
the lawlessness,
the man of lawlessness, and it's affecting every. But in a way, it's beautiful. It's like Tom Cruise and Taps. It's beautiful, man.
No, because the text says that God put them in this delusional state.
Yes,
that they can't even see.
They can't.
Yeah.
But for us who are witnessing this, we're like playing baseball in slow motion. We could see the stitches on the fastball. We could see that they're delusional. They think that a man could be a woman and a woman could be man. It's very simple how the game is played. There's nothing you can help. They're in every endeavor of mankind. They're delusional. In our airplanes, in our trains, our automobiles, in the movies, in every endeavor, every work, they're delusional. They can't be trusted for anything. They're a walking detriment to all of human society. Look, let me just give you an example in my business. You talked a little bit about the financial business, but just in my work business. Okay, so when we used to have electric motors, made in America, they were made with certain standards, electrical standards, quality control standards. But something happened around 2000, 2008, 2007, where we started outsourcing the manufacture of electric motors in the United States to China and different countries. And look what happens. This is the lie. Remember you read the scripture about the lie? So you buy an electric motor and you think you're getting copper windings. But you're not. You're getting look at that. It's not copper.
Yeah.
These motors die before prematurely. Sometimes we would put them up around 2008. I remember they were always failing after a couple of hours. And so I started chopping them up to see why. And then I would see that they were not made in the United States. And I've been in the industry for 40 years now. And so I know that all the products were made in America and they lasted 20 to 30 years. But something happened around 2008 when we outsourced our manufacturing. Well, the lie took over. So here the scripture comes truth.
Yes. But here, check this out. Hold on a second. So this is where, no, keep it there. Listen. So here you check this is where the curveball is in play. You show this to Donald Trump and he understands exactly what you're talking about. And he's going to say, let me see it. Now, here you have a guy who's a Canadian liberal. His name is Kevin O'Leary. And then he's going to double down on what you say. And he's going to give an epic rant and he's going to say how you need to just tell the Chinese to pound sand, go to hell, either play ball by the rules or you're not allowed to play with us. And you're like, I've never heard a liberal Canadian talk this way. Then you get in the same, and this happened all this year. Then you have a guy who's a libertarian who ran for Congress but didn't make it because he's a libertarian. Everyone hails him. Peter Schiff, you used to heard him. He goes on InfoWars. A great economist, everything, right? Great guy. Peter Schiff. He's going to fight you and says, you don't know what you're talking about. He's not even going to, he's going to say, okay, Jesse's finished talking. I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on bashing Trump. He won't even acknowledge that motor. He won't even acknowledge the fact that these motors are blowing up. You know, so what I'm trying to say is here you have a what you thought was a liberal and a diehard libertarian, and you come to find out that they were really, one can see it and one can't. And it's the other way around. It's inverted. That's what we're seeing right now. That here you have this guy who's a pope, you know, you would think with his the wall that he has, the immigration policy that they have at the Vatican, you would think this guy would understand. But no.
Something is happening in time and space.
It's inverted. Uh-huh.
And it's beautiful. And I thank God that we were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I thank God that I was baptized a Catholic when I was a baby.
Okay.
And you were baptized Catholic as a baby too. But mom and dad started studying right after you were born. But we got a taste of the Catholic Church, right or wrong. We got a taste of the Jehovah's Witnesses, right or wrong. And it's something beautiful because what we're seeing, the dynamic is that there is truth and lies. There definitely is truth and lies, and words have meanings, and there has to be consequences. For example, one religious group gets involved in politics, having the same God and the same Savior, Jesus Christ, and the other one says they don't get involved in politics. And the neat thing about being a Jehovah's Witness, when we got involved in politics, on an issue in the 1940s called the allegiance to the flag, the Pledge of Allegiance. That's when one of our first, Rutherford was sedition in World War II against the United States. But early in our history, we got involved politically in the anti-Pledge of Allegiance movement. Mm-hmm. But the Pledge of Allegiance was done for something specifically, and it touches with the Pope. It says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mm-hmm. And we had to say that. That was an America First pledge. Mm-hmm. If you don't have America First in your politics, then you're destined to screw your country. Mm-hmm. It's a foundation. It's a foundational. It's the same thing as a Christian takes a pledge. He gets baptized or he does his first communion, and he dedicates his life to God in baptism. It's the same thing. A Christian without Jesus is destined to hell and failure. Mm-hmm. A American without America is destined to the same destiny and fate. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to see with this Pope. He's American, but his allegiance is going to be torn. You're going to be seeing in the next couple of days, you're going to see he's going to go against the things that Donald Trump stands for. Now, he'll give a veneer, he'll give an appearance that they get along, but they don't. Because he believes in globalism, and globalism equals open borders. And open borders is an invasion of the nation state. It's very simple. It's very simple. It's like if you drop your pants, there's a man or a woman. Same thing is real simple. But some people can't see the simplicity. Once you lie about something so simple, you're destined to fail. You set the groundwork for failure. It's like this motor is a lie. This motor was engineered to have copper windings. And then some greedy business person in some far off land put a lie of a metal that wasn't true copper. It threw the motor and it failed. The same thing with all these people who believe in social justice warriors, LGBTQ. They're all based on a foundational lie, and they're destined to failure, and their epitaph will be regret.
Correct. Correct. So yeah, is it interesting? I was going to say, 'cause I was trying to say, like, it's okay for the Catholics to put the Vatican first, right? The cardinals, but we can't have America first. So
Yeah.
they,
And so
yeah,
that's why I say it's beautiful, because this fight has to be fought out. And Jesus said, let the wheat and the weeds grow together. Let them all go. And then we'll chop it. It has to be this way.
it has to.
If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
And the reason I brought that up about Kevin O'Leary and Peter Schiff is just I'm not saying they're part of any, but what I'm saying is sometimes you think like, I thought this was weed, or I thought this was the weeds, right? But then you come to find out, well, no, it's inverted. So things aren't like you think they are, and same thing like with Donald Trump, right? He's a sinner, party boy, playboy in New York City, and then time goes by, and then you see the fruit, right? You're like, well, no, this guy loved his country. He loved America. He loved the people. He was a man of the people. In a way, you could say Donald Trump is the real missionary. Who's the missionary? Who's the one serving the people? Who's the one getting his paycheck and using it to put a flagpole, right, in the White House? I guess he wants to build a big, huge ballroom in the White House with his money. I mean, who's the missionary here? Who's the one? That's he's like he's like Sinatra. Remember, Richard Burton gave that speech, and he said he did it against Sinatra's will, but he did it anyways. And but he didn't get a lot of details. But how Sinatra swore everybody to secrecy. Look at all of the donations that he would give. He would just give donations and help everybody out, but he swore everybody to secrecy. And that's the same thing with Donald Trump. So, and you saw Kathy Lee Gifford. She did that video when she talks about when the guy wanted to kill her, and her husband went to see Donald Trump, and he helped. He helped Kathy Lee Gifford more than the FBI did at the time. Well, granted, the FBI caught the guy, but the point is, I'm trying to say is that, like, they just say missionary, but like they don't give no resume. There's really no details. Like they say, well, there's really no receipts. But now we're coming to find out that the people that keep quiet, that just do, they're the ones that have the receipts. I believe, and I may be wrong, that the Pope doesn't have no receipts as a missionary, and Donald Trump is the true missionary.
I would never go there. I would never go there.
I would go ahead.
Yeah. Because out of respect for his job, I respect every man's occupation, and I don't care if you're
correct.
Whatever you are, just be good at it.
Yeah, but Jesse, but speaking from experience with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the religious leaders, these religious leaders, they're not missionaries. None of them are missionaries. The only one that you can say that probably has a resume, or the two, are Samuel Hurd, maybe, but Jarrett Loge probably had a resume. But these other guys, they're like this Pope, like you said, paper pushers. They have a history, a long, distinguished history of working in the office.
Well, we do know this, as a matter of fact, we do know this, that this is one of the most beautiful games that we are witnessing. Our mother and father would love to have been alive. I believe John F. Kennedy would have loved to be alive. I believe I don't see Dwight Eisenhower as a very cerebral, but I think maybe some of our former presidents and leaders, religious leaders, would love to see the things that we're witnessing. Because there was a song in the 80s when we were kids, when two tribes go to war. And that's what we have. The wheat and the weeds are at war. When two tribes go to war, we have nationalism versus globalism. There's a push and a fork. Just a couple of months ago, we had Joe Biden. The ultimate powerhouse of globalism was in power. And now we have Donald Trump. We had two titans of the battlefield in our presence. And they'll go down in history as some of the greatest in their... Joe Biden will go down as one of the greatest globalists. He just bent over for the entire globe to come in. And you'll have one of the greatest nationalist heroes, Donald Trump. So we're witnessing a great back and forth. And in this is the religious back and forth. There's freedom of religion in the United States. And the Catholic Church has chosen to use its religious freedom in the sake of open borders, globalism. It's beautiful, man. And our brothers, their brothers in the church are saying, no, we can't do this. There's a strong Catholic community, conservative community in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And they're repulsed by what they're seeing.
Correct. And
They're law and order.
And
They're law and order.
hopefully I'm wrong about my comments, and this guy turns out to be a good pope.
But we do know the facts that we know the facts. This
Mhm.
I would never question his credentials. It's just not my job, my instinct. But I do know the facts. He does align himself in his social media posts with lawlessness.
Yes.
And he views it as his Christian. This is the irony. We're all Christians here. We all call ourselves Christians. We would never break the law. We would try not to break the law and be faithful to America, where this Pope really doesn't care about it. He puts it in second or third. So if he were to stand up, for example, do the Pledge of Allegiance, it means nothing because it really is no allegiance to America. And there goes the great irony that people had on John F. Kennedy. We didn't know where his allegiance stood. This gentleman, because of his Christianity, because of his Catholicism, puts America in a second and third, and it is visible and it is a fact. It's undeniable. It's seen in his social media posts. America takes a back seat to his globalism. And therein lies the struggle that we're in.
Correct. And that's why I got that feeling. It was just a feeling of lawlessness because, you know, what the people are fighting for right now with the election is a return to law and order. And like the Bible verse says that God has stupefied them. They just can't see.
And Gilbert, you know what? You and I are privileged. Everybody in this comment section is privileged because great men, greater men than we could ever, John the Baptist types, and all throughout history, Joan of Arc, and you could go through every era of mankind, was not privy to see the struggle we're in. They wish they could live in our time and see the struggle that we're in with right versus wrong. We're good versus evil. We're right versus wrong. We're truth versus lie. The battlefield is so good for those who love truth. It's so visible. For example, you walk down the street and you see a tattooed love boy with piercings. You know that he's affected mentally. But in his brain, that guy is walking genius. We had a Jehovah's Witness the other day in a podcast. Didn't know what Prince Harry is. But she was standing out like she knows everything there is about life. It was beautiful. It's beautiful. People love the lie. If we were to vote right now, if there was a spirit of lie and the spirit of truth were to come into the American scene in 2025 for a vote, it would be a very close vote.
Correct. Because listen, going back to that, yeah, like the Bible says that there's a spirit, like God has blinded people. You literally have a huge percentage of the population in double digits that would vote for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and then a guy who builds skyscrapers, right? Who charges you $70,000 per person just to be part of a club. Now, I mean, that's some crazy. I mean, to be able, you know, anybody who does any kind of business, right? You're trying to sell a product, right? You're trying to, let's say your product is selling paper, you know, just paper, you know, toilet paper, any kind of paper. You sell something. I mean, to be able to get $70,000 just to have a membership, like Costco can only get what? 25, 30, 40, 50 bucks. I don't know what it is. Donald Trump gets like $50, $60, $70,000 a year. And now put all that stuff. What I'm trying to say is you have a guy who's actually built things, and then a woman who is nagging, yelling, and screaming. And you said it'll be a close neck and neck race. It'll be like a Kentucky Derby highlight where you don't, you know, it's down to the photo finish. And that's what the Bible in Second Thessalonians talks about. that there's lawlessness, and like God has put this in their brain that they're not allowed to see it.
You know, there was a generation prior to us, our
Mhm.
father's generation, or the fathers of our fathers, where when they were going into a concentration camp, they were branded a number like cattle,
Mm-hmm.
a tattoo, a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 2 generations later, they'll tattoo themselves with pride when it was a source of mockery, disdain, and inhumanity towards humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It was a numbering, a cataloging of the human body, of the human spirit, of the human soul. You were branded with a tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And you would see it every day of your life and remember the travesty of man towards man.
Mm-hmm.
And today, people go and tattoo their body all day long.
Mm-hmm.
They don't treat their body like a temple.
It's the other way around, yeah.
Or they'll put metal objects through their body, an orifices, or they'll expand it like if they were some kind of savage
Mm-hmm.
from the Pacific Islands. You know, they'll put these ears and they grow. And they're seen with virtue as virtuous people.
Or
And
they
the
want
person that you described, the person that you described who understands right from wrong, he's seen as a fuddy-duddy or a ne'er-do-well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now listen. I could see, painting and doing a little bit of dye, right? Putting some black. That would you say that is somewhat normal for a guy to put, okay. I don't like to do it. I did it once, and okay, but I don't do it. But I think just one time I did it. But then for me to go and put it blonde, to go full blonde, and then talk about my sexual escapades, and then I'm the crazy one. I mean, I don't get it. It's like we're living in an upside down world.
Yeah. Yeah, like I told you, if
Mhm.
the truth, the spirit of truth, and the spirit of lie were running for president of the United States this year, right now,
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez
it would be a close race.
Yeah.
People love it. People
Yeah.
love it. People love the lie. They
Yeah.
love the lie. For example, they'll walk down the street, and we have friends that'll tell you that a man could be a woman and a woman could be a man at straight faced. And so what I'm saying is very dangerous to humanity. These people, they endanger everything. You have a person who can't understand gender, but they're going to tell you
Mhm.
the laws of electricity.
Mhm.
They can't even tell you what a man is or a woman is. So it's getting to the point where it's endangering life itself.
Mhm. Yeah.
So sometimes in the question that we're having with the Pope, for example, the Pope sees it as his religious obligation as a Christian to help people who are coming across the border illegally. But we have laws that says no, could be a felony.
Mhm.
So we're living in perilous times.
Correct. And then he's over here talking about refugees when the laws on the book that are universally accepted in all of the countries via the United Nations is if you're seeking refugee status, you go to the country next to you. So who would we receive refugee status from? Mexicans who are at risk of dying because of the drug trade, right? The narco state is coming after them, so they're coming to America, or a Canadian the same way. But if someone's coming from Brazil, it would be incumbent of Colombia and all of Central America to give this person asylum. So he knows that, but they don't want to hear it. When you confront him with something that he knows to be true, they don't want to hear it. They it's like you said about the Jehovah's Witnesses. They are an inverted religion. Okay, they say, okay, we got Paradise Earth. What else do we have? A John class. What else do we have? Jehovah. What else do we have?
The
Door to
governing
door
body.
preaching, right? And you start picking all these things, and then you get the Bible, and you scour through the Bible to find some kind of reason to justify the structure that you've created. And that's what's happening in my opinion, with this Pope, the religious class, is they have a worldview, and then the Catholicism in the Bible is just simply used to justify their worldview.
And it's two trains heading down the track in opposite directions, the same track. Because J.D. Vance, for example, and the Pope, the argument that they both have, they're diametrically opposed. There has to be a point where, and in a way it's good, like, let's have a debate. Let's have a fight. Let's have J.D. Vance fight this Pope. Because they're both Catholic. They're both Roman Catholic. And they both have opposite views. Something's got to give. And when two men go out and face each other, only one returns. Remember that song, Liberty Valance, the man who shot Liberty Valance? When two men go out to face each other, only one returns. Well, this is the classic right versus wrong, good versus evil. And both men think that they're good. And both men view the other side as evil. So that's why I say it's beautiful. I don't know what's going to happen. I happen to agree with J.D. Vance. I happen to be on his side of thinking, and I happen to be opposed to his. But the Catholic Pope is saying that it's a form of Catholic worship, Christian worship, to help illegal aliens. And I don't know. It's going to be a strong debate. Now, this is a debate. I do know one thing. This is a debate that John F. Kennedy would not have agreed with the Pope on. That goes to show how far the Catholic Church has swung in leadership to the left.
But you got to go back to my point. So if I was like talking to the Pope, I would say, you're absolutely right. But all of the illegal aliens from South America have to seek asylum in Central America. If you are in India and you need to seek asylum, you have to seek it in Russia or in Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan, because they're your neighbors. It is not the responsibility of the United States of America to allow refugee status from somebody who's not next to you. So everybody in the United Nations knows that. This is common knowledge. But why does this Pope and others, religious leaders, why do they ignore, and why do they think that we're stupid? You think we don't know this?
No, because they don't want when you're about to go and die in a fight, in a war, the general comes up and he gives a speech and he says, our fight is just. Our fight is just. We will carry the torch, our banner, and our fight. And so you're sacrificing your life for something greater. And you got to understand, these globalists, this Pope in particular and other popes, they do view them as a just fight. They see themselves morally superior than you. They see themselves morally superior than Donald Trump or any American citizen. Their Christianity and the way they treat globalism is morally superior than your Make America Great movement. They really see you as an inferior life form. You got to understand this. It's like the Jehovah's. We came out of the Jehovah's Witnesses. We heard the governing body call us vermin.
Yeah, they're the John class. You're right.
So they see themselves as morally superior. So when we advocate for closed borders and law and order, they come at us as a morally superior. They go, no. We are the world. Remember, like in the founding of our country, when George Washington said that the Declaration of Independence, and the King George said, no. They write to him a declaration. No, you are my subjects. I'm king, King George. I was born to be king, and you were born to be subjects. He could not have. He was genetically predisposed to not understand the words that were coming out of America's mouth. He couldn't. As far as he knew life was, he was born to be king, and you were born. And the same thing with the Pope. He's not American first. He's a globalist first. He's serving all of mankind. So it just lays out the argument. You understand the argument. It couldn't be more beautiful.
So would your girlfriend or wife leave you if you try to go like that King Charles? I mean, the King of England. I was born the male. Yeah. If you try that with your girlfriend or try that with your wife, see how that.
Well, in the 70s, Kiss had a song like that.
They did.
Remember, Kiss? Remember that song? You were born for loving me, baby. I was made for loving you. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's rock and roll.
And that's the mentality
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing here. Yeah.
So like,
Yes.
so if there's laws on the books, like that's why Mallorca didn't respect the laws on the books. That's why Joe Biden didn't respect them. They were morally superior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is why the governing body steals your kingdom home. It was never yours.
The ends justify the means.
Yeah, it was always ours. Yeah, 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 they're above you. Yeah, but I knew that about King Charles. Was it Charles?
George.
George, yeah, and but it's always a good reminder for everybody to remember that.
So Gilbert, we're at an hour.
Yeah, I got to get going.
You want to recap?
You can go ahead and recap.
So what we think is that the Pope, congratulations to the new pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church and the Roman Catholics, and we hope the best days. But we know that the arguments couldn't be more separate. So touche.
Mm-hmm. And he's young enough, and he looks like he has good cognitive abilities. So it's going to be a good push. It's going to be a good, like you said, a beautiful, nice battle.
Mm-hmm.
And we get
the battle, like Ronald Reagan says, the subject has been chosen, the battle lines have been drawn, and we're in a globalist, nationalist face-off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll see who. Yeah, this is going to be beautiful.
Something that John F. Kennedy avoided is now can't be avoided no more.
Yeah. So when you think about it, you had a President Biden who was asleep at the wheel, right? And then you had an ailing Pope that was, sick. And then they both die. And now you're right. So now you have two men, sharp minds, bodies, souls, and it's ding ding. It's time it's a Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a great show. And
yeah.
we get to see it.
Yeah, we get to see it.
And play a part of it. Yeah.
All right, Gilbert.
Decide. All right, guys. We'll see you later, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. I hope you guys liked it. We were only supposed to go 30 minutes. What happened? Hey, so we'll see you guys Saturday at the 6 screens. What the heck is that all about?